Welcome to the Jeremy podcast, where we take a deep dive into different educational topics to help you optimize your life. I am Jeremy. I am your host. I am here with, might as well say, my co host now on a lot of the episodes, Mr. Monte.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, afternoon, night, whatever time it is for people that when they're listening to this, watching this, whatever the case be.
Yeah, I never think about that. It's always funny too. We talk about like the Eastern Central from when you move into St. Louis out to Florida and we're on the same time zone.
Uh, I mean, it's tough. Like when I was there, it was like wherever you're at, you run off that's the time, right? So when I was Central Time, like Central Time's the time because this is where I'm at, and then you always had to think ahead. Now I'm back Eastern Time, and it's just, it's craziness. Why don't we just have one time,
Yeah, it's one time.
make it a little bit easier? But I get it. This weekend is fall back as far as time goes, right? Spring forward, fall back. That's another thing I wish would just stay the same. Get rid of it. Just none of that stuff.
I thought they talked about that, like
They
doing
did,
that.
but I don't know if it was like a region thing, state thing, or if it was a national thing. I don't know, but I know there was some conversation of going away from it. And there's data out there about like how people, it affects the circadian rhythms and affects their sleep and that type of stuff, especially when you spring forward.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Yeah. Now fall back, and she was going to hit me the other night because we will be in Central Time for the Ironman in Panama City. She is playing in Eastern Time, so she has to go to coach a game where they're playing in Eastern Time. Plus, you have fall back within that. So she's trying to do the math of like, well, I've got to leave at this time, but that time's really going to be this time the next morning, and I've got to adjust an hour. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's
like,
why it should all be the same.
correct. I'm like, hey, yes. I was like, at least you're gaining like an hour there if you think about it, right? So the hour she loses on the way back, technically she doesn't lose it because you're falling back or whatever. And it was confusing. So
I'm stressed out thinking about it. Now I
right.
can't do it.
Well, I got a topic that a lot of people are stressed out thinking about. And this may surprise a lot of people when I say this, but I am not a big fan of protein bars inside of nutritional plans when we're in a reduced caloric diet. Now, once again, understand with education, and I'm trying to get better about this in what am I teaching? Who is my audience? Okay, so the audience really is a couple different platforms with this. One particular, though, being when you're in a reduced caloric diet, you don't have many calories in the diet to play with. That's who I'm speaking to, that protein bars aren't the best choice. Now, if you're in a maintenance plan or even a gain, phase of your journey, 100% protein bars are awesome, right? Because they're quick, they're easy, they're convenient, they taste good, But the thing we have to remember with the protein bars, even though it says protein bar, most of the bars on the market are going to be, in my opinion, a carb bar or a fat bar. And a lot of times that is overlooked inside of the nutritional label when people are choosing them.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of products out there, protein bars being one of them, but there's a lot of stuff out there, and it's that marketing on it showing protein because it the way I tell people is like you should know protein's a good thing that you should be eating by how many people put it on the front of their label to get you to buy it.
With that, I mean, that's a positive thing. That is a positive thing in how the field is going. And what I mean by that is a lot more health practitioners, a lot more dietitians are being on board with, okay, we need more protein than the standard American recommendation of zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram, right? That is becoming more of a consensus among medical practitioners, 100%. The issue with that you just mentioned is, okay, then you get over into the food companies and they're about the bottom dollar. They're about making money. So they're going to slap that high protein label on things, right? And try to sell it. And a couple of that stand out when you say that to me is the first one. You'll see cereals out there. They'll put the serving size, or sorry, they'll put how much protein is in a serving on the front. But if you turn it back over, you read this fine print, that is with a glass of milk. So they're combining the little bit of protein that is in the cereal and the milk and trying to say, okay, hey, it's this per serving. But a cereal product is going to be a carbohydrate first. Once again, doesn't make it good, doesn't make it bad, but it is a carbohydrate first.
Agree.
and the other one's peanut butter, right?
I
Peanut
was
butter
gonna say,
crackers.
I knew that was coming up on this call at some point.
Listen, Sunday,
7 grams.
we do the test of the Jeremy Mullins peanut butter shovel. We're gonna see how many tablespoons are in this one scoop of this bad boy. So that's just something like we want you to be aware of. We're not saying that, you know, those foods that we just mentioned are good or bad. It's just being aware of it as a consumer, right? And we're about halfway in our transformation challenge right now. And Monte and I are both seeing this as a trend with individuals, you know, as we start to make adjustments to push the results in individuals, that they struggle getting the carbs and fats down to get the protein in. And then when we dive into their food journals, what we're seeing is they're making a lot of choices with foods that are not those pure primary protein sources. And a lot of times the peanut, the sorry, not the peanut butter, the protein bar is one of those things. And we just kind of want to talk about it today. What do you look for in them, and just be aware of it. That's the biggest goal with the education today.
Yeah. Protein bars, chips, all the good stuff.
I don't. Do you see that a lot? I mean, I know we got the protein chips on the market. I don't see those as much as I do the protein bars.
I see a lot of both. I think it's become a big thing with like social media
Okay.
influencers pushing like the protein nachos and using protein chips and stuff for that.
And 100%, you can work those in,
You're right.
especially in a maintenance plan. You know, and that's what the goal is for everyone, right? To get to a good, healthy body fat, get to, you know, your blood work is good, your body fat is low, you're fit, and then maintain. And that's, you know, a good amount of calories for most people, and you can work those things in, right? Um, but where we struggle is like, you know, let's say I've got a gentleman on, you know, 2,000 calorie diet, right? And I'm going to increase this protein up because we know that when you increase protein inside the diet, is going to help burn more calories through the thermic effect. Okay, so if I'm going to take and add 50 grams of protein to this individual's diet, so I'm going to adjust the protein from 200 to 250. Okay, that would increase his caloric load to 2,200. But what I want to do, since I added the 50 grams of protein, I want to take away 50 grams of carbohydrate, because what I'm trying to do is keep him around the 2,000 calorie, but create a bigger caloric deficit in the energy sources, which would be the carbs and the fats, right? So as I make this adjustment, it is people struggle a little bit to keep those calories low with pulling out some carbs and fats, because they are making these choices of the protein bars, the protein chips, you know, things like that. That isn't just the pure protein. Okay. And I'm going to give you an example. And this is, man, side note, like this is one of the new flavors from First Form, and it is good, especially for fall, right? And it's the s'mores flavor. Now, where this would be good is if you're camping and you elect to have a s'mores bar over top of the two s'mores that you normally have in the camping episode, right?
Agree.
That's how you use these as a replacement. Okay. But if we break it down and look at the calories on this, it's 250 calories for a bar. Okay. So one thing I want to note there, is this is a pretty small serving size, right? So if I held my phone up in here, you know, for those that are listening and not watching, you know, it's about the length of a normal size iPhone. Okay. And then maybe an inch and a half wide. So it is not a lot of volume of food for 250 calories. That's something else to keep in mind. Okay. It has 9 grams of fat, respectively, 25 grams of carbs, and 20 grams of protein. So even though it's got 20 grams of protein, which is a good ethical dose when we start looking at whey protein, it still has the 25 grams of total carbohydrate. So if you're looking at this and going by how we educate on if things are protein, carb, or fat based on whatever's the highest, then technically this protein bar would be a carb bar. Versus, got one of our beef sticks here, Cajun style. What's your favorite?
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, the best way to do it is to take a jalapeno and a sharp cheddar and eat them at the same time.
Well, it gives you 40 grams of protein, so I kind
100
of like
grams of protein and the
it.
flavor is amazing.
Yeah. Okay. I like the I'm the barbecue. So I'm stuck on our my is the seasoned barbecue. So that's my favorite. But either one you choose, or if you're gonna be like Monte, mix them together. Totally fine. You know, so the breakdown of these, you know, we're looking at per stick 9 grams of fat, 12 grams of carbohydrate, and 20 grams of protein. And I think the carbohydrate in the seasoned barbecue is a little bit higher than some of the others, because it just has the barbecue sauce or the barbecue flavoring in it. is kind of coming from those added carbohydrates. So something just to kind of keep in mind, from that standpoint. So the seasoning is sugar, salt, spices, tomato powder, dehydrated onion, and garlic. So that sugar inside of the seasoning is the reason the carbohydrates are a little higher in the seasoned barbecue. But look at that difference: 200 calories, right? Probably, if you break it down, just a touch bigger in size, right? So you get more volume, you get less calories, and you get the same amount of protein in a meat stick that you would a protein bar, right? So that's where like making that better choice, will save total calories, but also help to lower that carbohydrate and fat, which we're really trying to do if we're going to try to push the fat loss in our clients.
Another thing is shakes. Comparing shakes to it.
I mean, 100%. If we're looking at just shakes, you happen to have, I see you got level one behind you, you got Formula One.
In the pantry over there.
Yeah, that's fine. So,
But I
what
was
is,
just with level one, just 25 grams of protein in
yeah,
it. Looking at the carbs and fats, only 3 fats and 5 carbohydrates. So it's that protein source. And then you're going to drink it with water, which is going to add more volume in it. So like helping keeping you fuller. I mean, in total 150 calories. So now
yeah,
we have less calories. We have more protein than the other two options. And then you get that water that's also going to help keep you fuller longer in that reduced caloric diet.
yeah. And what I like to do, and this is, you talking about a biggest volume, it decreased hunger is take two scoops of level one, right? Any flavor you want to, and then eat like some berries or even an apple with it, right? Because you're gonna get the berries, you're gonna get your, of course, your micronutrients, that, but you're getting the fiber from the berries and the apple, plus the whey protein. Whey protein concentrate is going to digest slower. That is probably one of the best bang for your buck caloric things that you can do to keep, satiety there, keep the calories relatively low, and to help fill you up.
Another
Plus,
trick.
it doesn't, guys and gals, it doesn't, we're not against protein bars. We're not against protein sticks. We're not against protein chips, right? I'm not saying that. It's just when you're really trying to make that push by lowering your calories down, inside of a challenge or inside of a given period of time, right? This could be like, hey, you got a cruise coming up and you're trying to look as good as for your cruise and it's 6 weeks away. You want to produce as good of results as possible in those 6 weeks, then that's what we got to look at doing, is making these sacrifices, making these adjustments in the nutritional plan over time.
You can look at the beginner coming in too, even somebody who's not trying to push. Like it's a great move for someone trying to push, but the beginner coming in, a common message I get is, "Hey, I cannot hit my protein without going over on calories." So making those simple adjustments are things that you can do to stay within those calories while hitting that protein.
And I think that's just, I think it would be common in someone new because they just don't know yet,
Right.
right? And the bars taste good. Don't get me wrong. Like some of these bars on the market, taste really well, right? So I'm talking about all bars on the market, not necessarily just, the level one bars from First Form, but there are bars out there that taste really good, right? But you got to really be careful because some of them, like I think of like uh, I know there's some that's starting to call them like MRE bars, kind of going after like MREs in the military, like they're meal replacement bars, right? Like you'll get 400 calories inside of a bar, and a lot of people are just kind of looking at that protein, from that standpoint. So just be aware of it. That's the biggest thing we want to kind of get across with this, and know that, if you're trying to save on the total calories, what we want to do is look for those sources of protein where the protein's higher, the carbs or fats are lower. All right. Now, Monte, to wrap this up a little bit, I do want to talk, because we talked a little bit about the added protein to certain foods, like the protein bars and that stuff. Let's talk primary protein sources, right? Because when we look at our meats, our fish, eggs, some dairy, there are better choices there to get lower calorie and still pack the punch for the protein. So, what are some of those options that would be primary protein sources? How would we look to get the best bang for our buck when it comes to protein and overall calories?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is eggs and egg whites. So that's the first one that comes to mind. Something adjustment that I've made and had most people make. You're having 3, 4, 5 eggs, which there's nothing wrong with eggs. Eggs are awesome. But when we are trying to lower the calories, looking towards lowering the fats, what is something I'll have some people do is, take out a couple of those eggs, keep 1 or 2 in, but then add a cup and a half of egg whites to it. So it's removing those fats from it. It's just going to be pretty much strictly protein. So we're going to bring the fats down, the protein's going to be up, we're still having the eggs, they're still going to taste delicious. And it's just an amazing switch to bring the calories down while keeping the protein higher.
That's a good one. And then of course you got like your leaner meats, right? So it would be your chicken breast over your chicken thighs, right? It would be your turkey breast. It would be your tuna versus the salmon. So what you're doing is anything that would be an animal product, you're looking for the low fat or the fat free option, right? Cottage cheese, another good example, right? You can get fat free cottage cheese versus the 2% or whatever you've been getting. So there's ways to lower that fat inside of those products, right? Because most of the time when we're talking about pure the primary proteins, they should be low in carbohydrate, right? Because that's just naturally they're low in carbohydrate in what they are. It's the lower fat versions you want to look for. Okay. So it may be as simple as just changing to a leaner beef, doing a little bit more chicken, a little bit more turkey, making that adjustment you just mentioned instead of 4 eggs, going to 1 egg and 4 egg whites, right? Whatever the case may be, making those small adjustments inside the plan. Okay. And once again, doesn't mean you always have to keep it because we could flip the script on this conversation and be like, okay, when someone's at goal weight and we want to add some calories back in, and they say, well, man, Jeremy Monte, like, I could eat that egg whites and eggs, but I really like just the eggs. Cool. Once you get to maintenance, that could be an adjustment that we can make and reverse this, what we're talking about today as we start adding calories back into your plan.
Yep, and that's what all comes down to, working it down and then just stair stepping it back up the other way.
Awesome. Well, guys, once again, nothing wrong with protein bars. Okay. Nothing wrong with them. Just something to be aware of, inside of your plans as you're working forward. If you have not tried the s'mores level 1 from First Form, I highly recommend you giving them a shot. And then also, if you haven't done the protein sticks, those could be staples inside of your plan, no matter where you're at, right? So the protein sticks, because it could be as simple as what Monte was talking about. If you're lowering your calories, you're trying to make a cut, do 2 of the protein sticks alone, right? When you get into maintenance, it might be 2 protein sticks with some fruit. Okay. Right. So that's how you can kind of add it and it could be your base, but then you could add to it as you go. So, Monte, I appreciate your time. Listeners, I appreciate you. Do us a favor, go share the podcast with a friend. Give us a rating if you haven't done that. We appreciate you guys and gals, and we hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy.